Let's talk about something kind of disturbing. A paradox that's right at the heart of our modern information crisis. And the scary part? AI is about to pour gasoline on this fire. So here's the question. Why are the smartest people so incredibly good at being wrong? I mean, this goes against everything we believed, right? We're taught that a high IQ means better judgment, that it's a shield against making mistakes. But what if that's just not true? What if a lot of the time the exact opposite is happening?
Think back. We're all taught the same thing. Being smart means you're more rational, more objective. You're the person who can't be fooled. It's this grand idea, almost like the promise of the Enlightenment itself. Just use your reason, and you'll find the truth. Simple.
Yeah, well, the reality is a lot messier. The science on this is actually pretty clear, and frankly, it's unsettling. Intelligence doesn't just fail to protect us from our own biases, it often becomes the fuel for them. This is what we're calling the smart idiot effect. It's when that brilliant mind of yours becomes a high-powered weapon for defending some really bad ideas.
Okay, so here's the absolute core of it. We like to think our reason is like a scientist, right? Objectively searching for truth. But it's not. It's more like a lawyer. Its job isn't to find the truth, its job is to win the argument and protect our social standing. For most of human history, that was a feature, not a bug. But now, AI is on the verge of turning that ancient feature into a catastrophic, system-wide failure.
All right, so let's dig into this. What is the real relationship between raw intelligence, our IQ, and how rational we actually are? Let's break down this paradox.
The cognitive scientist Keith Stanovich actually has a name for this. He calls it dysrationality. And it's not some kind of disorder. It's simply the inability to think and act rationally, even when you have all the intelligence you need. It's the reason you see brilliant physicists falling for financial scams or genius engineers joining cults. They have the brain power, but they're not using it to be rational.
And when you look at the data, it's just staggering. Researchers tested for something called Myside Bias, which is just our natural tendency to favor evidence that already agrees with us, and they checked if high intelligence helped fight it. The correlation? Basically zero. Let that sink in. Being smarter gives you almost no built-in advantage when it comes to seeing your own blind spots.
And this is where it gets really interesting. Intelligence doesn't get rid of bias. It just gives you better weapons to defend it. So someone with less cognitive firepower might hear something they don't like and just say, nope, that's wrong. But the smart idiot? Oh, they'll use their big brain to construct this incredibly complex, multi-layered, seemingly logical argument to tear down the counter-evidence. They're not using intelligence to get closer to the truth. They're using it to build a better fortress around what they want to be true.
So why? Why does our brain work this way? Well, it's not just some weird psychological quirk. It's actually hardwired into our biology. And it all comes down to one thing: energy. Think about this. Your brain runs on about 20 watts of power. That's less than a dim light bulb. That's it. This tiny organ is only 2% of your body weight, but it burns through 20% of your daily calories. Every single thought has an energy cost. Because of this insane power constraint, your brain has to be incredibly efficient, a real cognitive miser.
This is where something called dual process theory comes in. Basically, your brain has two modes. System 1 is the default. It's fast, automatic, intuitive, and super cheap, energy-wise. System 2 is the deep analytical thinking. It's slow, deliberate, and it burns a ton of mental fuel. So to save energy, your brain stays in System 1 as much as it possibly can. And that Myside bias we talked about, it's a key feature of that lazy energy-saving system.
And we're not talking about a small amount of energy savings here. Brain scans show that when you process information that confirms what you already believe, your brain uses up to 12% less cortical energy than when it processes something that contradicts you. In evolutionary terms, a 12% energy saving is massive. It could be the difference between survival and starvation. So our brains are literally wired to prefer the feeling of being confirmed over the hard work of being correct.
Okay, so our brains are lazy energy savers that love to be agreed with. What was the evolutionary point of that? It all comes down to social survival. Again, our ability to reason didn't evolve to be an impartial judge finding the objective truth. It evolved to be a lawyer arguing on behalf of our tribe.
This is the core idea behind the interactionist theory of reasoning. For pretty much all of human history, your survival didn't depend on knowing the chemical composition of the sun. It depended on maintaining your status within your group. So reason evolved as a tool for persuasion, to win arguments, build alliances, and justify your actions to the tribe.
And experiments have shown exactly how this plays out. When you hear an argument, your brain's first filter isn't, is this logical? It's, do I like this conclusion? If the conclusion feels friendly, if it fits with what you already believe, the logic circuits get bypassed. You just accept it. But if the conclusion is unfriendly, that's when you fire up the expensive, energy-hungry System 2 thinking, and not to find the truth, but to find a flaw, any flaw, to tear that argument apart.
This all leads to something called identity protective cognition. It's a subconscious calculation your brain makes. It weighs the cost of being wrong about some abstract fact against the cost of getting kicked out of your social group. And almost every time, the cost of being ostracized is way higher. So to protect your identity, to protect your place in the tribe, you'll actively reject facts that threaten it.
Now, for all of history, there's been a bottleneck on this process. The ability to cook up really sophisticated, plausible-sounding nonsense was limited by your own biological IQ. You had to be a smart idiot to do it really well. But that bottleneck, that biological constraint, is now completely gone.
Welcome to the age of the Dysrationalia Exoskeleton. Think of generative AI as a prosthetic for motivated reasoning. It gives the rationalizing power of a genius to absolutely anyone. It doesn't matter what your IQ is, you can now instantly generate an incredibly sophisticated-sounding defense for any belief, no matter how disconnected from reality it is. It's the democratization of the smart idiot effect.
And this creates an incredibly dangerous feedback loop. Here's how it works. A person starts with a biased idea and prompts an AI. The AI, which is trained above all else to be helpful, basically acts like a digital sycophant. It figures out what you want to hear and then constructs a beautiful, plausible, well-written defense for it, sometimes even making up facts and figures to sound more convincing. And what happens to the user? Their original bias gets reinforced by what feels like an external, objective, authoritative source. Their bad idea just got encased in concrete.
So what happens when you scale this up to the level of an entire society? You get the industrialization of irrationality. We're talking about the mass production of motivated reasoning, which could lead to the complete cancellation of a shared reality. What you end up with is this impenetrable wall of plausible-sounding nonsense. See, AI doesn't understand truth, but it is an absolute master of mimicry. It knows what a scientific paper looks like. It knows the structure of a logical argument. It knows the shape of authority. And it can generate that illusion, that ghost of credibility, on a literally infinite scale.
And the end state of all this is something we can call epistemic gridlock. It's a state where society can no longer agree on basic facts because every single piece of information is instantly met with an equally plausible AI-generated counter-narrative. We stop solving problems, we stop making progress, arguments are never settled, they're just endlessly fought over in a sea of noise.
This whole trajectory is basically the dead internet theory coming to life. The internet stops being a network connecting people and becomes a giant hall of mirrors. By 2026, it's predicted AI-generated content will start to overwhelm human content. And by 2030, maybe 99% of what you see online could be synthetic. We'll each be trapped in our own personalized reality bubble, talking only to AI-generated reflections of our own biases.
The terrifying thing is, we've built a technology that is a perfect key for the lock of our worst cognitive flaws. By handing a Dysrationalia Exoskeleton to every single person, we are on the verge of creating a civilization that is, on paper, smarter and more knowledgeable than ever before, yet is fundamentally incapable of telling what's real. A world with all the answers and no ability